Good afternoon, everybody. We are your obstacle toward lunch. So we're going to make sure to have a lively conversation and get you guys to lunch on time. I want to thank the participant in the green shirt, the pediatrician who just mentioned trust, because trust is really a big part of what we're going to be talking about today, because there's just a flood of miscommunication that happens everywhere on our social media, in our emails, like everywhere we go. There is tons and tons of misinformation, and Ilan and I are going to try to sort out what to do when your patients come to you, when your colleagues are coming to you, and everyone's saying, look, I did my own research, and we want to kind of figure out, well, is your research actually legitimate? Because they have their agenda and we have our agenda, and sometimes there's a bit of a conflict there.
And the idea here is to make sure that you entrust us right now, at least to being critical of the things that we're saying. Would love to tell you that I'm the expert of absolutely everything. I'm not, and that's the basis of all of us. We actually all come with certain biases that we need to recognize, but also with a lot of expertise, and knowing that not just wearing the white coat will actually give you the credentials to talk about it, but also reflect that most of us were never trained on how to talk to the public, how to engage. And right now we have lived a void that we need to start following up with, because we already know what happens when we're not there.
That's right. So Ilan, to start us off here, like, how do you define medical misinformation? I think I know it when I see it, but what exactly is it?
And I'm going to give you the example. You go on a date and it's a blind date, right? And they tell you that it's an amazing partner. It's kind of the same thing that you're expecting. And you get there because it's a blind date and you were very excited with all the profiles that you've seen, that after the entire night, having some drinks, having some fun, is not exactly what you were expecting. Then at the beginning, it looked like something fun, something that you were looking forward for. And at the end of the day, it was complete misinformation, because clearly it was not what it was intended for. You got some information that looked okay, and they even convinced you to go for dinner, but at the end of the day, you were confused on the endpoint and the activation that you had. And summarizing all these things, misinformation is something that it looks like it's right, but the basis of it is completely wrong. Then that can actually create a lot of conflict, and that void that we want to avoid.
Yeah. Can we talk about just the role that social media plays? Everyone's in sort of their own silo, their own rabbit hole, and everyone thinks they're getting the right information.
We are actually getting the right information, the one that the algorithm wants us to actually consume. And that's actually the hardest part and the horrible part of this. And one day, please do this example and exercise in your house. When you talk or start liking stuff, the algorithm starts feeding you the things that doesn't need to be true, but triggers you, makes you actually engaged. Then right now, a lot of our patients and a lot of the patients actually do have real questions regarding vaccines. They have real questions regarding medical procedures. Then if they start hearing about autism and they start going on that rabbit hole, the algorithm will actually feed you all these crazy things. And not only that, it will actually give you more people to actually follow. And at the end of the day, if you have 5, 10 minutes or 3 hours of that doom scrolling, as I call it, well, your brain will be fried. And the same thing happens with a lot of the things that we're seeing right now. And we have seen this week a lot of examples regarding the MAHA report. We have seen it with fluoride. Then it starts with a real question: how can we protect our kids? If you have kids or not, we are all pediatricians here. We want to actually give them the best tools ever. And we started questioning, like, is it worth fluoride? Then you start seeing that part. But right now, because there's a lot of noise regarding anti-fluoride and all that part of it, then the algorithm will feed you that. And at the end of the day, you will actually think that, we actually do not need fluoride in any case. Fluoride is bad for everyone. And when you start generalizing all these things instead of giving options, you're done.
Right. And I think you hit upon a few of the key areas where in pediatrics, there's a lot of misinformation. Vaccines, obviously, autism, COVID and masking, fluoride and IQ are kind of hot topics. I like to enter this conversation thinking that parents really do want the best for their kids, right? That they're not coming there to be combative and to, but they're concerned and they're scared. I think fear plays into a lot of this. So how do you respond to the parent that just shows up with information that is completely incorrect when you know they have the best of intentions? Say, they come in and they want to skip their measles vaccine because they'll just treat them with vitamin A, for instance. Like, what's the conversation look like that you have in the office?
On reality, and I have a life transformation thought of this because I was trained in Mexico City. I did my pediatric residency in Chicago, and I had that centralized idea that me as a pediatrician, as a doctor, the entire family needs to follow the recommendations, right? That's kind of the things. We train 13 years, 14 years, whatever. We have been practicing for decades, and we have all these experiences and little letters after our names. But something happened to me that was called having 2 kids.
Reality check.
Reality check. And that actually changed a lot of the things that I do. Why? Because I'm going to be bluntly honest. Did I have questions when I was vaccinating my kids? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. But I followed what was recommended. Follow the science. Figure out what's the advantages, disadvantages, contraindications. And I ended up vaccinating, and I continue boosting my kids, myself, my wife, and even my mother-in-law every year, because I think that
For all the right reasons.
For all the right reasons. Of course,
her.
for protect her and have her with us, of course. And the idea is to make sure that we're connecting the dots between the information, what we have, what it's out there, and giving options. Then when someone actually comes to my office, and before I felt completely horrible because all the science is there. You don't read the science? Of course not. Of course not. My patients are having 2 or 3 jobs. They're running from one side to another. If they are lucky, they're actually accessing Instagram or internet. Then at the end of the day, the bubble that they're coming from, it's the same feeling that I had with my kids. I want to protect them. I have true questions that need to be answered. Then if I start with my own biases on this is the real truth, this is the thing, everything changes. And part of the moment of thought was that I don't see myself as the coach. I don't see myself as the judge or actually the one that holds the information. I see myself and I tell them, I'm your waiter here. You're coming to my restaurant and I will give you the menu of things that we have in front of you. Why? Because that changes the entire conversation that we started in 2020, where they felt completely disengaged, when they felt that the powerful forces of I have no idea what we're telling them what to do. Then I'm giving back that power on the level setting.
Are you referring to the COVID experience in 2020?
I cannot talk about it, but yes, the COVID experience in 2020, vaccines, masking, that we were telling them what to do. Then there's a lot of feeling of being powerless. And right now the power is coming back because they always had the power. We want to have the conversation. Then showing that menu gives them, what are my dishes, my specials for the day. If they're deadly allergic to something, I need to know because I want to skip that. And it's okay if they choose a different dish that I have on that menu. But I want them to continue coming to my same place because I want to actually serve them.
So you've never dismissed someone from your practice because they wouldn't follow the letter of the recommendations?
I have been practicing since, and I'm going to count the residencies, in 2008. I have never dismissed someone. And why? Because the same thing when you actually send someone to avoid, and you're avoiding that conversation, they will figure out a way to get what they need. And I know that I at least represent values, ethics, and science. And I prefer them to be with me and continue having that conversation, making sure that they can have an option. They have that part. But if I'm hard as a rock, there will be someone else out there, an MD, DO, chiropractor, health coach, guru, or whatever they can actually find in their hands that will kind of, the same way that with the algorithm that we were talking about social media, someone will actually give them that answer that they want instead of the real answer or the option of understanding what's the real thing?
So you'd rather keep them within your sphere. So maybe over time in education, you can get them there, or what, like, take me through what, like, how do you convince someone who is coming in with a totally different set of facts to think the way that you want them to think and to protect their kid, which we're sort of obligated to do?
So I love the question because it took a lot of time, training, and ideas. Then there's actually a concept of 3-5-3. That's actually a method that came out from This Our Shot, and I saw some people that actually participated with this. It was a campaign to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine, but this is applicable to fluoride, autism, and any topic. And the idea here is that all of us are experts in our field, but the same way that if your mom or your dad tells you to do something and you didn't want to do it, you're going to push back. Then it's actually level setting as humans. Then the first part is actually the first three part, and I'm going to summarize this part, is to make sure that you are on the same basis as your patient and parents. That means that you understand where they're coming from. What are their actually real concerns? Because more than pediatricians, we're kind of FBI agents every time that we have a patient or a parent. We all come with different agendas on the back end, and we need to discover what's a real concern. Then, for example, right now that we're talking about MMR, a lot of parents are deadly afraid of autism. Then a lot of parents go like, no, I don't want MMR because of the side effects. Like, which side effect? And always bring yourself to the conversation. And the example that I gave you regarding COVID-19, it's a perfect example on how to engage our patients. They see the doctors that we are like this guru thing, but we are still that thing, humans. We continue to be humans. We still eat, we have fears, we have ideas. Then connecting on that part that me as a parent and also a pediatrician had doubts on how to proceed and how I solved it. Then that way they level set. The part of the 5 parts on the middle part is actually giving correct evidence-based information. Not telling them what to do. I'm not even yet there. It's a part of evaluating what they need to do. What are the options? What happens if they actually get the MMR vaccine? What happens if they actually get the measles, mumps, or rubella infection? And what will be the outcomes? And getting the information there and answering any questions. And yes, it takes time. Yes. And I know that sometimes we're running away from one place to another, but this is important to invest on that timing. And the last part, it's no matter what they decide, if it's a yes or a no, it's leave the door open. That's very important right now, because one of the worst things that we can do is actually close the door on someone that was thinking about it, that actually needs to have a conversation. And right now, I have a lot of families that have been coming forward and getting the MMR vaccine after 1 or 2 weeks because they needed to consult with the family members. They needed to actually review the information. They need to have more time to digest. That don't feel that if in that moment you do not get an answer, it's actually gone. It's a start of a relationship.
When you're finding out where they're coming from, are you asking them for their sources for where they're getting their information and pointing them toward the different sources if what they're getting is unreliable? I can imagine it can come off a little judgy if you're like, no, your information's no good, mine's better. But like, how do you square that?
Please raise your hands. And for everybody that's hearing us on the podcast, we're actually raising the hands here. Who has ever gone to an Instagram page that a patient actually gives you or a website? Exactly.
That's a lot. That's a lot of hands.
That's an amazing amount of hands. Probably like 50% of and that's not misinformation. That's a average of 50% of the room. At the moment that we start actually engaging, that is a learning opportunity for us. Because sometimes we live in that echo chamber that we're only seeing the things that we are hearing and we want to see, or the algorithm is actually giving us.
So do you take time during an appointment and have them open their phones up?
100%. It's one of the best things because that way I learned and I can actually give them, well, that's information, but let me show you the evidence, the research. And when they quote, for example, and we had this week regarding the MAHA childhood chronic disease report, when I actually go with the citations or the research that has been the backup of whatever they are telling me, and I work with them to actually take 10 more minutes and answering any question that there is there. And usually they go like, oh, I didn't know that part. That dude that was telling me that the world will end, it's not as bad as it was. Then opening that door and creating that conversation between us and our patients, it's amazing.
And how successful have you been on a gestalt level of changing people's minds, or at least having them consider another point of view, as in your point of view?
I have 100% reliability on my ego being checked. That means that I changed the way that I perceive that, because there's good days, there's bad days, but I feel amazing when I have that conversation. And there will be parents that will never do, like, I need your kid to actually dress on lab coat every time that comes in. Like, it will never happen. But there's a lot of patients that actually come back and actually want a vaccine or a procedure that was recommended. Then my ego check was the 100% checked part of all those conversations.
That doesn't happen, but that's okay. So, part of this is the obligation to the child in front of you, but the other obligation we have is to the families that do get the vaccinations, to protect them. You obviously don't want to have a waiting room full of unvaccinated kids with a 2-month-old who hasn't had a chance to get their MMR yet. How do we square that obligation to that family when we're accepting all these people that are kind of not playing by the social contract?
As a concept, it's very hard. On reality, on the ground, on the patients that I serve, in the communities that I serve, the majority of my patients are very compliant with the recommendations, with the things that the AAP has actually put out there, with all these things that we have known for decades as not just truth, but actually verified research-based conversations. Then at least the majority of them will be protected. I always encourage my patients that are not vaccinated. That, by the way, I have probably like 3 in my practice. It's not
a lot.
No, it's not 3, and I do urgent care in general pediatrics on high volume basis. Then it's not a lot of families. Then the reality, at least on my practice, is that they are taken care of, and I encourage them, do you, but make sure that you're bringing a mask, an N95 mask. I actually give them that. And they see that part of, the connection between me and them, and they usually are really reliable for that.
Okay. I feel like the whole crux of this issue is trust. Let's talk about trust from the individual families, because I want to know, how did we get here? It used to be that the pediatrician was a trusted person, and the doctor and medicine in general was trusted. We've lost some of that. How did we get there, and how do we regain the trust just on that individual family level?
I can tell you for sure that, at least on my perspective, the key part was COVID-19. And no matter where you stand with vaccines, masking, everything else, we completely failed. So we failed. Each of us here in this room, we failed completely because we were not equipped with the tools, not the scientific tools, not with the evidence-based part of it, not with the research part that we know of. We failed because we were not part of the conversations, and the science was changing so fast. And we were inundated to make sure that our patients were safe, that we were not even trained to do public health comments. Social media, no, I don't do that. 2020, the increase of doctors actually and pediatricians engaging in social media after 2023, it's amazing. Before we had a couple, we had a couple of radio stations, media stations, TV stations, but it was not part of the thing. And because we were not part of the thing, that created a void. And who came in? Misinformation, disinformation, people that had their own agenda and went up. And I get it from the patient point of view, and it happened to all of us. We started with the idea, who actually heard about masks in 2020? Oh, probably nobody at the beginning. And after that, it was like, just grab your shirt, put it in your nose, and you will be fine. And after that, we went like, oh, not only that, put 2 bandanas, and it will be better. And after that, do the surgical mask, and we ended up on the N95. And after that, we added ventilation and other stuff that we have, filters and other stuff. Then we got to a point that the science actually put us there. But the entire conversation and explaining those changes was very, very hard for the community. And same thing with the COVID-19 vaccine. then that's why we need to start re-engaging and making sure that we're part of that conversation. We are not afraid because, familia, who is a runner here or who does exercise here? Does it feel fine when you stretch yourself? No, your muscles are horrible, right? Those are called growing pains. We need to have growing pains and make sure that we are there in places that we will get attacked. We will get nasty comments, but we need to be there. If not, someone else will be there.
During the last talk, someone brought up a really good point of who we can trust. I think there's representatives from across the political spectrum who are self-proclaimed experts. Some are, some aren't. How do we as the individual clinician sort that out? Because there's truly, anybody could post anything. Anybody could put an MD after their name or a bunch of letters after their name. How do you sort that out reliably?
The way that I do my own research is the one that is very important. First of all, is who they are, where they're coming from, what's actually the research part of it, their expertise. Because if you see me talking right now in a cooking channel, don't follow me. Please do not follow me. I will probably burn a lot of things. But if you see me actually talking about vaccine pediatrics or public health, then hear me out. The other thing is that I make the point that even though that you have a lot of letters after your name and having a white coat, that means squat. Then we need to figure out where is the basis of that. And most importantly, the fifth part is what they are trying to sell. What's the hidden agenda and narrative? And the most important part of everything is that if you are feeling that it creates a space in your stomach and you're feeling pain there, or you're getting tachycardia, or you're feeling horrible, that means that it's probably misinformation and they're trying to, on purpose, create that feeling on you and in your patients. Then with those five, at least you have, a true north of where we are, and try to find independent information. I love this week, and you probably have heard it, regarding and I'm going to go back because it's a very recent example, regarding the MAHA report that actually had citations that were not real. Then it's important to actually do, and I'm going to use this phrase, do your own research. Make sure that you're double checking everything that they're telling us, because that's very important for our patients. Right now, all of us will have a lot of information regarding fluoride, vaccines, chronic diseases. And the thing is, we all have heard the important thing about making sure that nobody here wants a kid with chronic diseases, asthma, obesity, name it. But we know that they need to do diets and exercise. But my patients, actually, when they go out there, there's not a safe park or a green space for them. Actually, the safest park for my patients, it's a cemetery, because the gang members do not go there. And the other side is, my patients know what's healthy food. But they go to the supermarket and they have two choices: the green stuff that Dr. Shapiro is telling them to eat, or fight hunger. Fight hunger. Then we have all these things, then making sure who's telling us what's the narrative and where they're coming from is very important.
Right. Now, what are the reliable resources that we can still count on? There was a question earlier in this conference about whether we could still rely upon the CDC for correct information as information gets pulled back. Who should we, the pediatricians, trust?
Beautiful question. You can probably see here on the slide deck a couple of my favorite places that you can actually find information. And it's not self-proclaiming, but the American Academy of Pediatrics had done an amazing work on healthychildren.org in social media and actually on their website. It's in Spanish and English, and it's very reliable, and it's actually trusted source of information. More than the Epic Cerner or any fact sheet that you have inside of your systems. I love that one. The other one is making sure that we are giving our patients the tools to actually decide where the social media and the media stuff it's there. Then you can actually find commonsensemedia.org. It helps a lot with conversations, and still there's a lot of information, the CDC website, that it's actually worth it for now. And I do not know it's going to be alive for a long time, but you have that CDC website. And of course, there's big groups like the American Public Health Association that it's doing a great fight to maintain dignity, equity, collaboration values on public health that actually most of it, probably 30-40% about social drivers of health. They talk about it. And last but not least, still on the government side, but still actually working a lot. The last one for Medline, it has a checker, a lot of information that you can be shared.
And what, I know I have my own social media with the people I trust that I have followed for a long while. How do you recommend that we individually, how do we pick and choose who to follow or who not to follow for that matter?
The first one to actually follow is Salomon Behar. That's the first one to do. And on reality, the volume of people that you're following, it's really not that important. For example, there's like amazing influencers. They have like billions of people around them and they don't give a cent for them because they are just using that to make money. But there's other people that actually come and you can see on their websites and the conversations. They are actually bringing value to my patients and I like the information and it's verifiable. And maybe I actually probably we can have a different slide and we can actually share some of my preferred partners in crime. The most important part is that, and I'm going to leave you this message for all of us. Who is actually right now active in social media? Who's actually active right now in radio stations? Who's actually right now active in TV stations? Research papers. Okay, familia, choose your weapon because those people in Instagram actually need your tools and your voices are very important. Then if you do not want to create content, that's perfectly fine. The post and like the funny dance in TikTok. But if you actually want to do something, make sure that, with the people that we're going to be sharing you in the next slide, you can actually understand where they are coming from and just resharing information of someone that you trust is very important. I have Nina the Brain that I just love her. Unbiased podcast, that's another one that I love. And I have a couple of other, another pediatrician, Rubin, he's amazing. Then you have all these people that are actually being very critical. And you know why I actually follow them? Because when they screw up, they acknowledge it. Because they are actually making sure that the research they're having and publishing it out there are a reliable source of information that can be traceable. And the other thing that I love is that they don't sell anything to me, just hope and a lot of good information.
I like that. How do we amplify the voices of reason? Because it's such a turbulent tumble of noise out there. And I know who I like, and I know who I trust, and I know who I feel comfortable amplifying. But how do you actually do that?
I'm going to bring you to 2009 when I was a pediatric resident. I had my first pandemic there, was influenza. And at that moment, I started seeing all this crazy stuff on TV. People with white coats saying, don't get the influenza vaccine because you will die. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't go to the public health department because, if you don't have insurance, it will be $400,000 billion. Then I started actually deciding to write, especially on the Spanish channels, what's even worse because the quacks and everybody else there was actually they were asking for videos, sending potions and books to actually recover healthier way against H1N1. And I actually started writing scripts for Univision. Making the story short, we all are feeling right now the pain of the things that are happening. Then writing a research paper is important. Having the basic concept of it is important, but the time until that research paper from a journal reaches our community, it takes years. Right now, we need to act fast, making sure that we are creating content that is on value for our patients, that is actually following the value-based concept that we have. Second one, then it's very important, making sure that if you don't want to create, that's okay. Make sure that you're sharing it. You go like, Doc, but I have like only 20 people following me. You're all micro-influencers. I promise you that. You have no idea how important is your voice to your family members, to your own patients. And of course, we will get some bruises. There will be people that, not everybody likes chocolate cake. Someone actually may like, carrot
I
cake.
think I wouldn't follow them though if they didn't like chocolate cake.
You see?
That's a red flag.
That's that.
Huge red flag.
Exactly. Then make sure that they eat chocolate cake. And that's why it's so important to connect the dots. And if you're not creating content, make sure that you're amplifying it and be part of the conversation on your radio stations. And we have, a great group with Tomas here on the front that we're going out there and talking about vaping, cancer, vaccines. Then if you're interested on that part, we have the network to actually put you out there, train you and get you, your voices heard.
You lead right to my next question, and actually one of my last questions. What sort of measures does either our local AAP chapter or even on a national level, what measures have we taken to combat misinformation? Because it's obviously a huge problem.
We were actually talking a couple of minutes back with someone very important for me, Dr. Curry. And one of the things that we have here is that we are voicing out the way that AAP has never been voiced out. And what do I mean with this? If you see right now, the evidence-based Instagram, Facebook, and other Twitter, Blue Sky, and everything else that they're using, it's actually answering what's happening right now with all the reports that are coming from the federal government. Then we are seeing traction on that part. Then I have seen Dr. Rubin actually posting the Instagram page of the AAP and actually just doing a commentary on that part. Then that's something that we can all do. We can actually reshare that part because we need to continue voicing out, because I promise you that I continue talking with my pediatrician, and that he took care of me when I was 6, and I still have that conversation. Then we have a special trusted source of information and place in the families. And even though that you feel that you cannot do anything, but if you influence and have the conversation with 5 patients on your Instagram, then it takes you probably 2 seconds and a half to do a share of something valuable, that actually will start doing that part. And the AAP is making sure that the information is as close and evidence-based as possible, that way we can have policy and a reflection of the real values of each of us, that we want our patients to have the options, to have the toolkit, to actually be healthy, because we know what happens when a kid actually has a bad start in life and we don't correct that. We have an unhealthy adult.
Right. What is your recommendation to do when a leader in public health puts out information that is directly contradictory to what we know medical science has pretty definitively said? Like, how do we individually and as a bigger group, the AP, how do we fight that?
I'm going to give you an example, because this is the things that we need to start changing completely the way that we do things. Then hold on with this.
This I don't know what's happening here. So, do you need music?
Music.
Oh, nice. Okay, so for our listening audience, Dr. Shapiro is sporting the Vaccines Cause Adults t-shirt, one of my favorites. And I too own one of those as well. I often wear it when I go jogging and always get a few thumbs up. And I haven't got anything thrown at me yet.
Give me 1 second. This is the way to do it. We need to be more verbal, we need to be more active, and we need to show our real colors. Because if we're not there, so if we're not creating these spaces on the places that we actually own, we're going to lose them more. And right now we're talking about fluoride. We're talking about vaccines. We're talking about chronic diseases with kids, and they're all important. But the way that we talk about it and the way that we actually voice our concerns and create that space, that's the key here. Because we're not used to actually feeling pain. We're not actually like to be uncomfortable, because we're seeing all my patients and all the crazy stuff that's happening. But right now we know that Medicaid can actually fall down. And that's probably a big 37 million people, kids actually, depend on that. Then we have a lot of spaces that we can create our voice and make sure that we raise our hands. And we don't need to be disrespectful. And it's not a fight. It's more than that. It's the values that we carry, and having that conversation there, it actually works.
All right, Elon Shapiro, thank you so much for enlightening us here. Thank you guys for being a part of this and for listening.